Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we have another book review because there are a few books that I really want to talk about, and so we're having a couple books to talk about in review form, and this week's will be The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. For the ones that don't know, The Shadow of What Was Lost is the first book of a trilogy called the Licanius Trilogy, written by James Islington, or Islington, I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. All of the three books have been published. There is another series that has become quite famous from the same author, the Hierarchy series, I think. It starts with The Strength of the Many and no, the Strength of the Few and the Will of the Many. That is it. I always confuse the two titles. Those have been quite famous. They are more recent. They've been ravaging through the fantasy world with great reviews. This one is a bit older, but this one was the book that I had, so I read it, and actually I should have done it a lot earlier. But anyways, this book was published in 2014, so 12 years ago. It is an epic fantasy, high fantasy, think kind of Wheel of Time, but more recent and more modern. And in regards to the Goodreads stats, this book has over 94,000 ratings, which is a lot considering the 12 years of existence, and the score it has is an average of 4.14 out of 5. Now, this value is kind of within the range of what we consider normal for fantasy, so it's not astounding, but it's also not bad, which is good. Let's see if my score matches this with my review. But before we jump into the actual review, there's just one housekeeping item that we have to take into account, and that is the synopsis. I'm going to narrate the synopsis to you, just so you get a glance of what the book is about. If you don't want to hear anything because you're allergic to spoilers, you really don't want to hear, or you've heard it already, then skip to the next timestamp. It will be the start of our categories, which is plot. Otherwise, you can stick around and hear me narrate this synopsis. It has been 20 years since the end of the war. The dictatorial augurs, once thought of almost as gods, were overthrown and wiped out during the conflict, their much-feared powers mysteriously failing them. Those who had ruled under them, men and women with a lesser ability known as the Gift, avoided the augur's fate only by submitting themselves to the rebellion's 4 tenets. A representation of these laws is now written into the flesh of any who use the Gift, forcing those who so marked into absolute obedience. As a student of the Gifted, Davian suffers the consequences of a war fought and lost before he was born. Despised by most beyond the school walls, he and those around him are all but prisoners as they attempt to learn control of the Gift. Worse, as Davian struggles with these lessons, he knows that there is further to fall if he cannot pass his final tests. But when Davian discovers he has the ability to wield the forbidden power of the augurs, he sets into motion a chain of events that will change everything. To the north, an ancient enemy long thought defeated begins to stir, and to the west, a young man whose fate is intertwined with Davian's wakes up in the forest, covered in blood and with no memory of who he is. Alright, and with the synopsis out of the way, hope you enjoyed it. Now we can move on to our categories, and of course we're starting with plot. Alright, so this book starts with a great premise, which is a magic academy. We have these young adults in this magic academy, and they're about to do a final test to become full gifted. And I think that is a great premise for me, at least, because I'm a sucker for magic academies. And so immediately I was like, let's go, this is good, I'm already enjoying it. Of course, as the book progressed, the plot kind of took a turn or several turns, and it went very different way than I thought it would. But I can say that the plot was always consistent, and it was always entertaining, it was always surprising. There were twists that I did not expect, twists that were planted, that I can see them planted, but I have no idea how they will resolve in the following books, which I really enjoyed because it's basically the author saying, hey, I'm giving you the cards, if you can guess it, go ahead, but I bet you will not be able to, and I will still surprise you, even though I gave you the answer right away. So I really enjoyed that daring display of the author, and I think the plot itself develops at a good rhythm. It turns in a way that I did not expect, like I mentioned, and also just because at the start, you start with only one POV, which is Davian, but as the book progresses, you start diverging and having several POVs, and those are all in different places, and that allows you to get a good grasp of everything around this world, and at the same time realize that there's different plot lines. There's an overarching plot line for the whole series, which is always something that I like to see, and I can see that it is very clear what it is, but at the same time you have this smaller plot for this book only that terminated in a good way. Not that it terminated in a pleasant way for the characters, but it ended in a way that I enjoyed and that it leaves a lot of things open for the next ones. I would say that the plot for these books reminded me a lot of the first books of Wheel of Time. That thing of them traveling, going to Tarvalon, and also the characters separating and joining back, developing a bit, separating again. That kind of feeling, it was very reminiscent of Wheel of Time. This is not to say that it is a copy of Wheel of Time, because it is not. It is very different. However, I would consider this like the next step after Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time was written 30 years ago. It tells the time that it was written. This feels like a modern Wheel of Time, how Wheel of Time would have been if it was written around this time. And I really enjoyed it. It's a different take. It is fresh, and there are a lot of things that I need to mention in regards to the other categories, but just know that the plot was always intertwined with all the other categories, and I don't think any of them could be separated completely and say, okay, this one was bad. I think all of them were good and they complemented each other. So for that reason, I'm going to give this category a 5 out of 5. All right, now going on into characters. When I started reading this book, I thought we were only going to focus on Davian, our main POV, and I was wrong, because soon after we diverge into 2 POVs, and a bit after that, suddenly we are 3 POVs. And I think that was an interesting way of doing things, because usually you just get right from the start several POVs going, or you get just the one POV and you just follow that. But this slow addition of the different perspectives, I think it was good, because when I was with Davian, I was still trying to understand how the world works, what is going on. And by the time we get the second POV, we already know that character, we know what happened to them. And so it's easier to just flow into that POV and understand that side of the story. And of course, I think it's an advantage to have the multiple POVs, because it gives us different parts of the plot so we can understand what is happening in different places. We get to also know more characters, and it allows the different POVs to have different development arcs. So they have different struggles, they go through different things, and I think that is good, because every character feels very different from each other. And then again, once they reunite, which happens at some point in this book, then you get that clash of people having changed a bit, but they're still the same people since they separated, and that allows for even more development, not only of the characters themselves, but also their relationships. So I think James Islington was really good in terms of the characters, how he developed each one, how he developed the relationships, and kept this momentum of separation and reunion, like going back and forth to allow these different interactions to happen. And then again, that type of interaction of like separating and reuniting reminded me a lot of Wheel of Time, because that also happens. We have our main trio from Two Rivers and also Egwene and Nynaeve, and they kind of separate and then join again after some adventures, and then they have some tips here and there, or they really reunite and get joyous, but then they separate again and then join again, and so on. So I think that was also reminding me a lot of Wheel of Time, which you'll see I will speak about Wheel of Time a lot in this review, but that is just one detail that I thought was similar in the best way possible. Aside from that, I think the side characters are also good. There's a lot of different mysteries surrounding them, which makes them interesting. And let's see how the second book develops, because I don't know if we'll have more POVs or how the other side characters might gain more relevance in the second book. But I'm curious and I kind of want to read more. So for this category, I'm going to give a 5 out of 5. Okay, now we're halfway into our world building category, and let me say that when I saw this cover, I did not expect whatsoever that the magic systems involved in this book would be like that. I looked at the cover and my first impression would be, oh, this is going to be an epic fantasy, but like travelers going from a certain point to point B and just a group gathering together, that type of old epic fantasy. I couldn't be more wrong. I mean, it has a certain aspect of that, but it is so much more, because the world feels really different. The premise where we start is quite different. I mean, it's not quite different. It's almost as if we picked Wheel of Time and said, what if the Aes Sedai, the people that can use magic in the world, were trapped in these laws that they cannot break, which kind of happens at certain points in Wheel of Time, but these are much more restrictive, and therefore changes completely the dynamics that exist with our characters and with the rest of the world. And of course, I cannot talk about this category without talking about the magic systems, because we have the augurs and we have the gifted. The gifted, again, very reminiscent of the Aes Sedai, with the one power, Saidin, Saidar, that type of magic, where they don't exactly weave, but they can control elements and they can make air moves from point to point. There's a lot of similarities, which I enjoy because I like that type of magic. But then we also have the augurs, which is a completely different type of magic, where they can detect lies, they can hear people's thoughts, they can even mess up with time in a certain way. I don't want to reveal too much because that is a big plot, a big point of the plot in this story. But I think it was really fresh. It adds so many different dynamics, these two magic systems together, and it creates so much tension for the plot twists, even for the characters. So I liked this junction. I hadn't seen it before. I like a magic system that feels almost bordering on science fiction, but it still feels fantastic at the same time. So James Allington did really well of the juxtaposition of these two different magic systems, how they interact, the story, the history behind the magic systems, or at least the civilization just before we start the story. But also we have a few hints of things from a very distant past and from a kind of distant future. And that is the world building part that I also enjoyed, which is the building of the world itself. It feels vast, it feels like it's been around for a long time, it has history itself, and you can see that there's things that we cannot exactly tell what they are, but they will be important in future books. So I think James Islington was really smart at giving you enough information for you to enjoy the world, but also plant enough seeds that you're like, I kind of want to know what that is about. I'm going to continue reading to understand the rest of the world. The only thing that I could maybe criticize, but I don't think it's a huge criticism, it's the fact that the cities and the landscapes that we pass through felt sometimes a bit rushed. But I think that is more due to the writing style rather than the world building, because when the characters were in those places, they felt vivid, they felt real, so I cannot really complain much about it. I think I will talk more about in the writing style. So let me just wrap this category up by saying that I will also give a 5 out of 5. Our last technical category is writing style, and what can I say about James Islington's writing style? Well, I enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect when I started it, and now that I finished the first book, I would say that the writing is similar to Wheel of Time, but way less descriptive. So if you didn't like Wheel of Time because of its descriptions, you might enjoy this book a lot more because it has a similar vibe, but it's a lot more direct. There's also a lot of action sequences, all written quite well. The only thing that I didn't really enjoy was the pacing. I think the book is good. I think the book has a great plot, characters, world building, etc. However, I felt like sometimes we were rushing a tiny bit. And there could have been more sequences between the big events of just getting to know the characters, those interactions, learning more about the world, things like that. And it didn't really exist. We were just jumping between big scene after big scene after big scene. And I kind of wish, and I don't say this very often, that the book were longer, that we had maybe 200, 300 more pages just to get that really fleshed out. Of course, I think the book would have been too big by then, but in my opinion, I would reckon this trilogy could be even bigger. It could be 4, 5, 6 books. So split each book into two, add more stuff. That's what I really would have wanted. But then again, I don't know if many people agree with me. I think this is not, it doesn't happen very often for me to say, increase this book, because usually it's like we could have cut some parts. But yeah, for this one, I would definitely increase. I would have enjoyed explored a bit more of the world, and I think that would have only been possible by adding more. But as it is, it's good. I think the themes explored were also good. Some of them were a bit on the nose, in the sense that you can totally see what the author is trying to say, but I reckon that he will improve in that aspect in the following books, because just even towards the end, I think things were getting better in that sense. So there's that. But overall, it's a really good writing style. I enjoyed it. I didn't know about this author, and now I'm like a stan of it. I really want to read more books from him. So for this category, I'm going to give a 4 plus out of 5. All right, then our last category, which is the subjective category, enjoyment. Did I enjoy this book? You can probably tell the answer already, that I enjoyed it quite a lot. Like I keep saying, and I repeated myself a lot, this book reminds me a lot of Wheel of Time, which is my favorite fantasy series. So I really enjoyed reading it. I was not expecting whatsoever. I mean, this book was on my TBR for 2 years. I had this book for more than 2 years, and I never picked it up because I looked at the cover and I just had a different expectation from what it actually was. And as soon as I picked it with the Magic Academy setting, I was like, okay, this is different. I'm enjoying this. And as the plot kept going forward, I was like, wow, okay, I'm getting a really good feeling reading this. And it reached the point where I was trying to find any excuse to be able to read a few more pages, just hide myself in a corner and continue reading so that I could finish the book. And I'm really regretful for not having the second and the third here with me already, because I would have probably already started reading it. I really enjoyed this series, and I cannot wait to get the next ones and keep reading. And of course, this actually also gives me a lot of curiosity to read the other series, the Hierarchy series with Strength of the Few, Will of the Many, because I'm liking this author and I think his writing is good. And if they are great stories, just as great as this one, then I think I'm going to enjoy it as well. So I think it's obvious that my score for this category is also a 5 out of 5. And that is it for our review. Just as a refresher, we have 5 for plot, 5 for characters, 5 for world building, 4 plus for writing style, and then 5 for enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 4.8 out of 5. Of course, if you want to add that plus as a 0.1, we get a 4.9 out of 5, which is so close to the 5. And I think if, like I said, if it were bigger, I would have enjoyed it more, which I don't say often about books. So I think that is just the ultimate compliment, is I wanted more of this book. What do you think? I think the Goodreads score is quite low for what it is. I think this book deserved a lot more, but I don't know why exactly it's at 4.14. If you have similar tastes to me, then I think you will enjoy this book a lot. But I kind of want to know from you, have you read this book? Have you not? What did you think of it? Do you think that this series is better than the other series, the Hierarchy series? I think it's Hierarchy. I've been saying Hierarchy and it might not be, but the Strength of the Few and the Will of the Many, those 2 books, are they better than this series? Comment down below. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and you shall be seeing me on Thursdays and Sundays. See you soon.